Hi YouTubers, welcome back to Vintage Fashion Hat Chat. I'm Norma Shepherd, the director of the Mobile Millinery Museum and the author of 5 books on vintage fashion, including 1,000 hats. I'm wearing my retro glasses today and I'll tell you why in a second. I'm also wearing some gloves from the 60s, so that gives you a bit of a hint rather than my museum gloves. I want you to take a look at this stack of red flocked hat boxes. Aren't they fabulous? They almost look wedding cake like. I'm bringing you a donor appreciation video today. I am always so grateful to our donors. We have received the donation recently from a man named Larry, a very sweet gentleman who has donated these pieces to the museum. They were owned and worn by his wife and obviously kept in wonderful condition over many decades. So really, really grateful. I love these flocked hat boxes. I don't know how many of you are also hat box collectors as well as hat collectors. They certainly take up a lot of room. And I was told early on when I started collecting over 20 years ago, a lot of mainstream museums would not take donations of hats, even beautiful couture pieces, because they felt they couldn't store them. And also remember that hats fell out of fashion in the 1970s, and for several decades they were really, people were disdainful of them, even to the point that mainstream museums, many of them, were not showing costume with the original hats that they were designed to be worn with, and that were in fact they were worn with them. And so many people, as I was interviewing them for and doing research for my book 1,000 Hats, disclosed to me that they had tried to donate their beautiful pieces to museums, and when the museums wouldn't take them, they gave them to theater groups, which in some cases was a real shame, because of course in theater the hats can be really get a lot of use. They can get altered, and a lot of the history is lost, and also the beauty of the original pieces. So having said that, let's dig into these boxes. I would first point out to you as well, you can see that 2 of the boxes are a deeper red than the one on the bottom, and of course that's because like Russian dolls, these all fit inside each other and may have been stored like that for a time. And of course the one that holds them all gets the most sunlight and the most fading. And I will tell you that even with the darker ones, I'm going to take the lid off, you can see that where the lid has rested against the box, you can see the original really deep color. And these are wonderful. These are like a flocked velvet on cardstock. Now I do have another set of these that I've had for years. They are in a deep green, and I have seen these in gold as well. But I'm thrilled to have been the recipient of this beautiful raspberry color stack. So let's begin with what I found inside. These hats were from the late 1960s. They're all a very similar style. For the most part, they're brimless and very typical of what would have been worn to special occasion events, perhaps weddings. Even brides themselves would have this style of hat as a going away hat. These were very popular with mothers and of the bride and mothers of the groom, etc. So I'm going to start with a bubble toque. This one is in a beautiful creamy white, and it is ribbon straw. Grosgrain ribbon, very wide, forms a bow at the back, so feminine. And I tell you, I put my hair in a ponytail today because this is not the style that was popular in the 60s to be worn with these hats. But I think if you really want to do these hats justice in a contemporary way, wearing them with a ponytail and maybe a less casual outfit kind of gives them a modern edge. So this particular one is an Adele label, Montreal label, beautifully lined. Look at that. So it would have been a high-end hat in its day. And the bubble toques, see, now you could wear your hat in a beehive in a style like this and certainly hairdressers were doing a lot of beehive bouffant styles for the women of the 60s. Think some of those styles on Mad Men. And also, some of the hats resembled a draped turban. So, just to give you an idea. But yeah, could easily wear that with a 1960s piece, or with a ponytail, I mean. Now, or you could do the whole 1960s look if you can find an ensemble from that period, or recreate one, and be great. Now, this next one, the label is Anita Pino. It also could be considered a bubble toque in a way. It's got a very high rounded crown, but it does have a brim, and it's a variation on the Breton with this upturned brim. Black straw, trimmed with similar straw in white. It is banded with ribbon that has been fringed. So really all around a very nice hat. And so you can see how the brim is asymmetric. It's a tad small on me, but for the most part, this is how they would have been worn. Now, a lot of people do ask me, as we do our retrospective millinery fashion shows, and there are a lot of hat lovers and vintage fans who come to them, and often they bring hats that they found and they ask me, why were these hats so small when they were new? Did people have smaller heads? Well, it isn't the case at all. It's just that I think a lot of people today expect that the hat should come right down, and that's not how they were worn. They really gave height. And don't forget, this was during the second women's movement, and hats were quite associated with the acquiring status. Similarly, during the first women's movement, the great big Edwardian hats were very large and prominent, but in a different way, power hats. So now this one is an Anita Pino, and I will tell you that I have done a video on prominent Canadian millinery designers. Anita Pino is among those I would put in a Canadian Hat Hall of Fame, and I will link in the description box my video that goes more in depth into her business and why she was so prominent. But this is quite a nice piece, and if you're a collector, that's a great label to hang on to. A lot of the bubble toques in the 1960s were tulle, and this is a wonderful example. It's amazing to me how white this remains. Maybe this was only worn once. This is a style that many mothers of the bride, mothers of the groom wore. It's almost wedding cakey, very much like the hatbox stack. Very cheery and light at the same time. Again, this bubble toque could be worn over a beehive hairdo. Anything bouffant, your hair could sit right under there. A lot of these hats were also worn with a chignon at the back. Now, look at the little lovely raspberry colored velvet bows. So pretty. And the label on this one says made especially for you by Marion Moon, or Woon. I'm sorry, these glasses are not bifocals. Anyway, it was made at a time when women were taking home millinery courses, learning how to make their own hats. So that label looks like one that might have been ordered by, a home designer. Again, it sits right at the back of your crown, and you could put a bobby pin or something in there, but it's not necessary. So you can see why I wore these glasses today. I think they go well with this style. Now, another one that very likely was made at home is this one. Again, it's high crowned, does have a brim, but the brim is folded up. And I'm going to find the center back for you here. This is the center back. And this is very well made, even if it was made by an amateur milliner. And as you turn it, you can see that the brim folds up. It's done on a buckram form. And then in the front, it decreases in size and allows for these little, the little ends of a scarf almost to to sit there. Now this is a printed chiffon, very typical of the colors as you're going into the 1970s. And it's almost a variation of a bowler. But I know this was handmade. It's unfinished. You can see the buckram form inside. And maybe this was only worn once and the maker decided, why bother with a lining? No one's going to see it if it wasn't taken off at the event. And this is how it would sit. So again, it gives you lots of height. And just think now how tall the men had to be if they were escorting you to an event with a hat like this. Now I have another tool, bubble toque, to show you. And this, again, all of these were donated by Larry. And I'm so grateful to him and others who often donate hats and costume artifacts along with the stories. The stories are great. And sometimes too, some people have even kept the original receipts and we know how much they cost at the time. Now this one was not made at home. This bears a Hudson's Bay, Canada label. The tulle again is so spring-like and fresh. The yellow is stunning. And how pretty to have trapped these little blue, peach, pink flowers under the tulle. We've even got some pearl-tipped little stamens here, some green leaves. Just lovely. Again, sort of wedding cakey. And again, it almost looks turban-like. It is really a variation on the turban, but it is very distinctive of the bubble toque style from the late 1960s. So I thank you for watching. I also thank Larry for being so generous with the boxes and the hats, and also he also donated a number of china cups and saucers from that era as well. And these are great because we do, although we travel around presenting to other groups who host teas and fundraisers, we do hold our own from time to time. And it's wonderful, of course. What goes better with a hat show than a tea? And wonderful to add to our collection of beautiful vintage cups and saucers. So if you've enjoyed this, please hit like, share, subscribe. We would like the algorithms to pick us up and enable more viewers to find us. I thank you again for watching, and please have a hatty day.